I don't. As long as the battery. You know what the answer to that was?
As long as
the battery lasts. That. Welcome to I Like Batteries, the show where we explore the world of batteries. I'm Mike Muldoon.
And I'm Jeff Lynch. Good evening, Mike, once again.
Good evening, Jeff. It is it's been an interesting week, wouldn't you say?
I don't think anything could eclipse this week.
Oh, so good. So good. Good. And if you know what I mean, Jeff and I are in New England. So if you missed it, this week's big thing was that the eclipse was there. And I did have my track team outside. They were all using their eclipse glasses to be able to look at things. So we were in New Hampshire. We were not a full solar eclipse. But, I mean, we were like 94.5%. I'm not sure how much. Do you know how much you were in?
Not even close to that, no.
No.
It didn't.
Oh, yeah, true, because you were a little bit more out of the range,
sort of on the
I guess I would
coast.
say.
Yeah, quite far out of the totality band.
But you still got to see it, yeah?
It kind of just got strangely colored outside. It certainly didn't get dark.
Oh, okay. It definitely did for a period. It didn't get dark, but it was more muted, I would say.
Okay.
So it was interesting. But a lot of people I know did go up to, say, northern New Hampshire or up to Vermont, and they said it was pretty awesome. Like, it got dark, the birds all got quiet and things like that. But, Jeff, I want to bring up something, because this is a battery podcast. It's not the Solar Eclipse podcast. But something else happened when the sun went away. Do you know what it was?
Solar energy generation.
Solar energy generation went away. Yeah, I mean, this makes sense. But here's the cool part. In a from an article from heatmap.news, they actually quantified this. And so this is super interesting. They were saying that last time in 2017, a solar eclipse, the U.S. had 35 gigawatts of utility-scale solar capacity. And that's increased to 95 gigawatts by the end of 2023. So end of last year. In terms of that. Now, we're going to talk about Texas, because Texas has a good amount of sun and they have a good amount of solar. Usually, solar production is fairly, I would say, robust in there. And their production, so in Texas, solar power production shrunk from 13.5 gigawatts at noon, making up 27% of their grid's electric supply, to 0.8 gigawatts at 1:30. So that's pretty interesting from a standpoint to me, because I mean, I like batteries, which brings me to something else. We'll talk a little bit more about the implications, but that's why you need a battery, Jeff, because there's something called the duck curve. And we've talked about the duck curve on the show multiple times of how, well, you get more production during certain parts of the day and you want to store that. And we'll talk a little bit about different ways if you are at home, you're like, well, Mike, how could I store that? How could I do this? Well, it's what I do almost all the time.
Yeah.
I've got the solar panels that I actually bring outside. I power up the power stations. They come in and they are able to power the podcast like they're doing right now. So Texas did fine, but Mid-Continental Independent System Operator, however, which includes a swath of the middle of the country from Minnesota to Indiana to Louisiana, solar output was estimated to drop from around 4 gigawatts at 1 p.m. Central to 2 gigawatts an hour later, according to grid stats. Instead, output dropped to around 300 megawatts, causing real-time prices for power on the grid to spike.
Oh,
this is super interesting because it's all supply and demand when it comes to power. So, yet again, to me, I look at this and go, you need batteries.
It would be
you
nice.
need batteries. If you'd stored that power, you'd be able to start outputting that. So, hence why we like batteries and, hence why we like the show. But, and they've got some really cool graph here. Unfortunately, folks, we can't show you the graph on an audio podcast. But as we said, we describe some of these things. But looking at it, it's pretty neat. So, and they said, I think U.S. Energy Information Administration estimated that 6,500 megawatts of solar generation capacity would be fully obscured during the eclipse, which would partially block sunlight to facilities with a combined 84.8 gigawatt of capacity in an even larger swath of the United States around peak solar generating times. So interesting to me. Obviously, it was a cool phenomenon. but we don't think about this. And here's where the other implications are within this. They talked a little bit about when we have fires and how it's blocking some of the sun because of all the smoke that's there.
Right.
So reliance on batteries is going to continue to become more and more grid-attached storage. But the reality is most people don't have gigawatt-sized batteries at home.
Not that I've seen, because you would see them if they were that big.
I would see them for sure. Absolutely.
Yeah. But yeah, we have smaller ones that we could possibly have and help.
Do you have a smaller power station that you actually were able to using? And did you? And the question is, if our listeners listen to the last show, you have had some power outages up in Maine. The question is, did you bring an EcoFlow back up to Maine?
I did bring the EcoFlow back up, and it's a good thing I did. We had our backup generator going, and as you may recall, it does not run the whole house yet. And the office, my office is on the second floor, and there's no power at all on the second floor of this house when it's running off the generator. And that's where my home office and all my computers and the Wi-Fi router and modem are. So I had an extension cord actually running from downstairs to upstairs to my office to keep the internet going. But downstairs, I brought the EcoFlow River, and Alice ran her computer, charged her phone. I charged my phone. I charged my watch, all at the same time. And I don't know. We used, only about 65% of the battery capacity over that time. Yeah.
No, which is awesome, which is completely awesome. And I think that's what we wanted to kind of go over for some of our listeners here, because I think a lot of people think of, your EVs, your big type of whole house Tesla Powerwalls, but you can also have something smaller. And funny enough, when I was looking around, there was an article that was basically out there that CNET that one of their writers had done. And the article is, "What a Portable Power Station Taught Me About My Energy Use." And the portable power station that this individual, I believe is John Reed, who wrote the article, right around April 10th, so fairly recent article. He had a Goal Zero Yeti 700, which we know Goal Zero fairly well. They were one of our first interviews. Actually, I think Goal Zero's interview was our first interview.
It was our first interview ever on the show.
Bill Harlan, yeah, if memory serves, and that was back in 2020. So it's been a bit there. So we like Goal Zero. We like what they have. And so this was a Yeti 700 power station that he was using. And what I liked most about this article is the fact that he talked about how he thought it was going to be one thing and how it was so much better when he looked at it. Yeti 700 is not a big battery. It has a capacity of 677 watt hours, output of 600 watts. So, you can run a fair amount of things. Surge output for 1,000 watts. And he said retails for about $600, which is pretty good. So it gets that under $1 per watt hour part where we want to be able to see. But used it. Jeff, here's what blew my mind when he said this. He used this Goal Zero Yeti 700 to run his refrigerator. And he looked at the website, said the Yeti 700 can run a refrigerator for up to 8 hours. He had an 18 cubic foot Frigidaire, Energy Star rated. It was estimated to use 453 kilowatt hours per year, or 1.24 kilowatt hours per day. So his math, which is always good to do math, is that the 677 watt hour battery kept it going for a little more than half a day. And that's awesome. He also found out the fridge only draws 6 watts from the battery when it's just, essentially I call it relaxing. Obviously the compressor's not on.
Compressor's not on, yes.
Yeah. But when it cycles on, the number ticks up to more than 100 watts, and added some of the required significant cooling. It's awesome. I mean, so then juice on the Yeti spiked to 300 watts until the drinks were cold. So we actually tried to cool his drinks in there to be able to see if it
as
worked.
opposed to just as you normally would, just maintain what's in there during a power outage.
Yeah.
And you don't want to be opening it all the time during a power outage either.
And I have to say, I'm more of a coffee drinker. You're more of a tea drinker.
I drink tea.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. He had a small, low-key Mr. Coffee I love the Mr. Coffee ones. It's Mr. Coffee, right?
How can you not like Mr. Coffee?
It's Mr. Coffee. Just basic. And I have a Black & Decker one. It's just basic one I use every morning. He wanted some caffeine. So the Yeti, and he said when running the coffee maker, the Yeti exceeds 600 watts of power, just above the list of maximum. I'd seen it max out and shut off due to overload before on the other appliance, but it powered through until the coffee was done. So
nice.
The surge capacity was there. He was able to do that. So I think people, not that you want to be without your power in any, whether it's an eclipse, whether we've had some storms in New England here, but having something like a small power station, whether it's EcoFlow, whether it's Bluetti, whether it's Jackery, whether it's Lion Energy, whether it's Nature's Generator, a lot of the folks we've had on the show, there is a sense of peace of mind that this does give you in the fact of if it goes out, you'll be okay. And I had a similar situation. We were going up to our house in Tamworth, and through that area, there's a lot of trees out. In fact, driving up there, I was like, oh, we're definitely going to have the power out. And the good part is I know my Rinnai heater will actually run off my power stations because it doesn't actually take much to be able to do. And I can run it for multiple hours. Really, if I run it for 2 hours, I'll get the house warm and then can just shut it off and we'll be fine. And of course, if you put, I think this is how Murphy's Law goes. If you put the Bluetti power station in the car to make sure you do that, you will have power when you get up there.
Absolutely. Just guarantee. That's how it works.
Because you've prepared in terms of what you're able to do. But my suggestion for folks, and these prices have come down significantly. I mean, if you want to spend under $200, you can get yourself a Blue Yeti EB3A, which has a good amount of power, up to 600 watts. I think I remember it's 267 watt hours. So a little bit, obviously, less than this Yeti 700. You can get yourself an EcoFlow River 2. I think it's kind of hard to find the power station that both of us have now. I mean, because they're not something that's there. But you could get an EcoFlow River. And just to have one as that spare thing, as unfortunately natural disasters or solar eclipses happen, you're able to run these things. So it's just a thing, I think, as you and I have been through the process of seeing a lot of power stations and batteries, it's just that peace of mind to be able to have, whether it's turn a light on, whether it's charge your phone, charge your laptop, or your Mr. Coffee maker, or your refrigerator. I mean, these things can run them, and they're not running you a huge amount of cost. In fact, they're probably running you less than a gas powered generator. And the beauty of it too is you can run it through the night and not worry that you're going to get carbon monoxide poisoning or something like that. So,
right. Yeah.
So.
The other thing too, then, we've mentioned this on the show before, but try to think of your power usage. And that was a big lesson of the article on CNET that we just discussed, was that it gave the writer a better perspective on how much power and energy it was actually using.
Mm-hmm.
And that you don't necessarily need a single large unit to run everything. Absolutely. You can have multiple smaller units that will just take care of your bedroom and your lights and your laptop and your phone and your internet, and not necessarily your fridge. Or you get it, if that's important, then maybe you get a separate one for your fridge that could run that a little longer.
Yeah.
Depending on your situation.
Absolutely. So I think it's always good. And what's for me in using them is just like, hey, I'm not actually. You also realize how much stuff is the phantom power drain that's actually probably going through your house with all the stuff plugged in all the time. Because you're like, well, it's not plugged in. I'm not using it, and I'm still.
Yeah, you are. Right? Yeah.
And that's another piece of the equation, so to speak. So I thought we thought that was kind of cool to be able to look at the eclipse and how manage your uses. But Jeff, I think one thing we want to lay the groundwork, if I want to say, or seed it, because it is spring to seed it, is something we're going to discuss in our next episode, and it's something we actually discussed. Well, I think about a year ago.
By this time last year.
You want to tell the listeners what that is?
Yes, and I haven't been to another one, but there's something called the Volta Foundation, which has all things battery, and they actually have a annual battery report, and the 2023 battery report just came out. It's 300 some odd pages of information about industry and academia and what's happening with government policy. And we They say that they have predictions, but the document doesn't have the predictions in it. So we won't be discussing those, but we'll certainly be digging into some of the other things that we find interesting from the report next time.
Yeah, some of the interesting things on it was like technology and whatnot that they're using. We've said sometimes the upper limits of what you can do with a battery are more managed better with technology. And I think as the BMSs get better, I think that's a huge part on this for sure. Well,
which makes me think about, and I forget the name of we've talked about a couple of different power stations that had just the swappable battery banks that you put in.
Yeah.
So the BMS was a separate component so that like the BMS could get smarter. And later when you need to replace the batteries, because yes, I'm sorry, folks, eventually batteries do need to be replaced, but they last a long time. So don't lose hope there. But then you get those advantages, right? Like better BMS and maybe better battery chemistries, in 5 to 10 years time.
Oh yeah.
You're sort of, you're securing that investment, and it's, your ROI just goes up. It's amazing.
Absolutely. In fact, actually something I want to mention, we didn't prep this in pre-show. I saw a Cybertruck.
Did you?
Yeah, there was a Cybertruck driving through Hampton. And I think I saw Jesse who posted it. It must have, the person must have been going to Greenwave EV because I saw a picture of it. I was like, I saw that. They're definitely interesting in their look. I mean, because I think you see it on television they talk about, but then you see it in real life, and I'm like, it's like one solid light bar on the front.
There's no mistaking what you're looking at.
Oh God, no. Oh no, like you're
sure.
like, it's this. I even said to my son Andrew, I was like, it's Cybertruck. He's like, I don't think he said, "You sure?" I mean, he trusted me since I do have a podcast about batteries. I know what it is, but yeah, no. I mean, it's there, and you know what? I was given the fact that now, if you go on cars.com, you look at electric cars, they actually will list the Cybertrucks. I didn't know about them, and I was going to look some of that up, obviously, because I hadn't prepped this because we weren't talking about this, but is the battery size on them. So it's a pretty big battery.
I assume it's over 100
122.4 kilowatt hours.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. I mean, I did not know that it was, that's a pretty large battery.
Well, it's got some significant towing capacity too.
It does have significant towing capacity. Yeah. But it says it uses 42.9 kilowatt hours of capacity over 100 miles of driving. And so it will go 340 miles on a full charge.
That seems pretty decent.
Yeah. Yeah.
Considering its size, it's fairly big.
Correct. And I think that's what you have to look at. Obviously, somebody who's been looking at EVs and different things, like that's not a really huge range for the size of battery, but obviously the big part about this is the capacity of it, because the 2024 Cybertrucks, which obviously now I've seen one, did you know how much horsepower it has? I'm gonna tell you because I looked it up.
I don't. I'm sure you looked it up, but I looked up the weight.
845 horsepower.
That seems like quite a lot, but it weighs anywhere between 66 and 6,800 pounds.
But it can tow 11,000.
For how long?
Well, I don't. As long as the battery. You know what the answer to that was?
As long as the
battery lasts. That's that's funny. Like how long? As long as the battery.
Yeah, of course.
Lasts. Because like
the obvious answer.
If you go up a hill, things like that happen. But it's just interesting. I had, as I said, didn't know as we were looking at this, like, so how big is the battery and things like that. But so that little off the cuff thing, folks, in terms of the show. But clearly, when you see things like that, since I like batteries, I like to be able to see things that have batteries and things that. So yeah, super interesting in terms of vehicle. Man, you can't miss it. You won't be like, I think that's a Cybertruck. There's no way.
Right.
Like,
exactly.
You're like, yeah. No, that's definitely a Cybertruck.
Well, speaking of vehicles, Mike.
Oh yeah, we'll drop the thing.
We should mention
I am technically an EV owner now. Yeah. So I decided to go with, and we've been talking on the show what I would go with. And I've looked at EVs. I was thinking plug-in hybrids. So technically I have a hybrid now. It's a 2020 Honda Insight. So I went back to the Honda platform that I had been for a while. And the Insight has actually been out for a really long time. I would say it's not the spaceship looking type of Honda Insight that was back in like 2008 or so. Those looked like
try 1999.
1999. So sorry, but so and that I actually test drove one of those old ones, and they were definitely very hybrid looking, I guess is how I want to say. Versus what I like about the 2020 Insight is you don't really know it's a hybrid unless you look at the badges when the fact of that, or that really the thing about the Insight is it has been a hybrid since the beginning, right? So it's not like it's a Civic hybrid or an Accord hybrid. It's like the Insight has been hybrid from the get-go. So Honda's worked this platform up. So I looked at it, Touring Edition. I like it. I mean, I have the ability to run Eco. I have the ability to run Sport, which is fun. I told Jeff in pre-show, I kind of like, if I decide to switch it to Sport, it combines the electric and I don't have massive horsepower, folks, here. It's about 107 horsepower. This is a commuter. That's what we're going for. I know Jeff's got the more sporty vehicle of the two of us on the show, but that's always been the way.
I think that fits. That fits.
That fits, yeah. But I do like the fact that I can run it on EV mode. And I did hypermile it and got 62 miles per gallon on one of my trips.
Very nice. Very nice. I just found something quite interesting on
about the
original Insight. So the original Insight, again, first gen, 1999. And I think you mentioned that your car has a 6.5 amp hour battery.
I believe that's accurate.
Is that right? Amp hours, or was yours in kilowatt hours?
I'm pretty sure it was amp hours.
Okay.
Yeah. I hope they defend it.
The original one also had a 6.5 amp hour battery, but it was nickel metal hydride.
Oh, yeah. Pretty sure it's lithium ion. When I checked the specs.
So.
Yeah. Inside, we'll see battery with it. Yeah, but so liking it, I do get an eco score every time after I finish driving.
Oh, how nice!
I get so it shows me some leaves, so to speak.
Oh,
of how to
so nice.
Yeah, the interesting part is that you can pick up some of these batteries for not type of thing. But yeah, I'm trying to exactly see. It's not telling me the battery type, but yet again, I would assume it's a lithium-ion battery. So yeah, in terms of these things, but
yes, I would. It'd have to be at this point.
I would think so, for sure. And like I said, so they started 2019.
Yes, it does say lithium-ion. Sorry, on the Wikipedia page, it does say lithium-ion.
Wikipedia page, yeah. And the thing that they had said too is that they stopped. So they basically stopped making this version in 2023, so just last year. Stop making it. So say goodbye to the Honda Insight. But I'm liking it so far. Very comfortable. I got the Touring Edition, as I said. It's kind of a between the size of a Civic and an Accord,
which is nicely sized, I would say.
Yeah, it's perfect. And honestly, with 3 kids, if we have to have them in the back, it's good. Really comfortable ride. The thing that's there, the one thing I would say that I'm a little bit that I thought it was going to have that it doesn't, there's a spot right for your phone to sit nice and flat, like flat in the front, which is great,
sure.
Right? It's not a Qi charger though. There's no Qi charger there.
Welcome to 2020.
22 exactly. So I think that's what it was. But I given the fact there's a USB there, I'm sure I could put a Qi charger.
You could put a little pad there, yeah. Provided you can also, the case on your phone allows you to Qi charge your phone. I don't know if
you've had that issue before.
I can't, yeah, because I do the little wallet case, and I still think that's better than not. So
I agree.
Yeah.
And, if you want to make sure that you charge something, we always recommend that you stay fully charged, or at least 80%. And that means, it's getting later. Hopefully you had a good night's sleep. Hopefully the solar eclipse didn't mess up not only your solar panels, but your circadian rhythms. And we hope that you have a good night. Get some sleep, or good morning if you're waking up and listening to us. And thanks for joining us. Have a good couple weeks. We're usually every 2 weeks here now, right? But get ready for a little bit of Volta, more insight into the world of batteries and where maybe it's not going, but where it was, right?
Sure. Yeah, no predictions this time.
No predictions. We don't make predictions, but we will predict that we will have another show, and we predict that you will be listening, and we want to thank you very much. Have a great week.
Thanks so much.